Nintendo has been a name synonymous with family-friendly video game entertainment. With such famous franchises underneath their belts such as Mario, Kirby, and Pokémon, Nintendo is renowned for cute games appropriate for all ages. However, there are plenty of Nintendo games that hide something sinister beneath their cute and cuddly exterior. And on that note, we thought that we would put together a list of the top 10 darkest Nintendo games that have ever been released. But of course, just before we do go into the video, if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10s, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. And with all that said, let's just get straight into it. These are the top 10 darkest Nintendo games that have ever been released. Number 10. Pokémon Sun and Moon. While Pokémon is one of Nintendo's most beloved kid-friendly franchises, each entry has its share of dark moments. Some of them have come from some surprisingly disturbing Pokédex entries, while others have come from some villains. The darkest moment in the entire franchise comes courtesy of Twist villain, Luzamine. Not only does she want to put a wormhole to unleash destructive monsters upon the world, but she's also a cruel and abusive mother to her children. While the game does imply that she's simply under the influence of Nihilego, this is still pretty dark territory for Pokémon. Number 9. Pikmin. An astronaut crash lands on an unknown alien planet with a toxic atmosphere, and with 30 days until his life support fails, the astronaut must gather missing pieces of his wrecked ship or die on this unforgiving world. This sounds like the description of a survival horror game, but it's actually the plot of the adorable Pikmin. Though Pikmin has bright colors and a cute retro sci-fi aesthetic, these elements thinly veil just how terrifying this game is. Even the cute and comical Pikmin can be devoured in droves by the plant's terrifying inhabitants if the player is careless. This makes the game come across as even more scary to younger players. Number 8. Kirby Star Allies. Out of all the Nintendo's franchises, Kirby is the biggest poster child of being dark despite its cute exterior. Almost all the game's final bosses are some kind of eldritch god or waking nightmare that contrasts sharply with Kirby's cute and cuddly appearance. But out of all the games, Kirby Star Allies is perhaps the darkest. The game's primary villain is Highness, the leader of a magical cult who was banished to the edge of the galaxy by those who feared his power. Driven by revenge, Highness's goal is to summon the dark god, Void Termina, to wipe out all of existence. If this wasn't dark enough, Void Termina shares a disturbingly large amount of similarities with Kirby himself. Number 7. Super Paper Mario. Being more story-orientated than the mainline Mario games, the Paper Mario spin-off series of RPGs can contain darker elements while still maintaining the series' signature sense of comedy. Even though it does away with many of its RPG elements, many fans consider Super Paper Mario to be the darkest entry of the Super Mario franchise. While it's full of the humor that Super Mario fans expect, Super Paper Mario has one of the franchise's scariest and most tragic villains in the form of Count Bleak. After losing the woman he loved, Bleak gave in to despair and plotted to destroy the multi-universe. A villain motivated by sorrow isn't something that many fans expect from Mario, but many feel that it made the game stand out. Number 6. Xenoblade Chronicles. While Xenoblade Chronicles is developed by Monolith Soft, it was published by Nintendo, and its characters have appeared in multiple Super Smash Bros. Games. All the Xenoblade Chronicles games have been excellent RPGs, with lovable characters and dark plots. Among these games, the first one has one of the darkest stories. The game's plot really kicks off when young protagonist Shulk swears revenge on the race of machines, called the Mechon, when they attack his village and murder his childhood friend. And that's before a series of shocking twists regarding the nature of Mechon and who the villains of the story really are. Xenoblade Chronicles is a sobering look at the nature of war that seems really out of place for Nintendo. Number 5. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. While The Legend of Zelda has had many dark entries, Majora's Mask stands out as perhaps the darkest. Even compared to the gothic and desaturated art style of Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask has some of the most frightening imagery in the entire franchise. The game has had terrifying enemies and even allies, like the Happy Mask salesman, that looks distinctly unsettling. But what really makes Majora's Mask dark is its premise, in which the moon will crash into Termina within 3 days. The cause of this impending doom is a child who feels betrayed by the perceived abandonment of his friends. He is then manipulated by a powerful parasite, making him one of Zelda's darkest and most complex villains. Number 4. Earthbound. Known as Mother 2 in Japan, Earthbound is one of Nintendo's biggest cult classics. With its fun, RPG combat, and bizarre sense of humor, many fans have been crying out for a follow-up or remake for decades. But beneath its silly exterior, Earthbound is a shockingly dark game, with mentions of cult and child abuse. But the most terrifying part of the game is its main antagonist, Gigas. While an alien determined on destroying the planet is pretty common in video game stories, he's made terrifying through his amorphous appearance and babbling dialogue, consisting mostly of Nez's name. Even the game states that the player cannot grasp the true nature of his attacks, adding to his horrifically incomprehensible nature. Number 3. Fire Emblem Three Houses. While every Fire Emblem game has had some degree of darkness, Three Houses has a deep and rich backstory full of war, betrayal, sexism, racism, genocide, and horrific experiments conducted on children. All of this combined makes Three Houses one of the most traumatized games in video game history. It would probably be faster to list the characters who haven't experienced some traumatic event before or during the game's story. All of this is made worse by the fact that none of the game's multiple endings are able to 100% fix everything about this cruel and unforgiving world. Number 2. Metroid Fusion. Out of all the Nintendo's iconic franchises, Metroid stands apart as one of the darkest. Being a dark sci-fi setting full of horrifying monsters, an M-rated Metroid game would probably look and feel a lot similar to a regular one. Among this dark and sinister franchise, Metroid Fusion deserves a special mention for feeling like a horror game. Even with the Game Boy Advance graphics, Metroid Fusion gave plenty of kids nightmares with this terrifying story and imagery. With players not even able to damage some of the bosses within this game, many a gamer's blood ran cold at the sound of the parasite masquerading as Samus at the height of her power. Number 1. Internal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. By far the darkest game in Nintendo's vast library is the appropriately named Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. The only M-rated horror game that Nintendo published, Internal Darkness is the last game that many fans would expect to see Nintendo stamp on. The game is a dark mystery full of terrifying monsters and eldritch gods. The player periodically plays as different characters in interconnected stories that usually end tragically and gruesomely. Worst of all is the sanity meter that goes down whenever the player sees something that defies explanation. If it gets low enough, the player character experiences horrifying hallucinations on top of the game's actual horrors. And so there you pretty much have it. Those were the top 10 darkest games to have ever been released from the Nintendo franchise. So what did you think of this list? Do you agree? Or perhaps that you think that there was another dark game that wasn't on this list that should have been included? If so, do let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. And of course, not forgetting that if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10s, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course like this video. I'll also leave some more top 10s at the end of this video if you would like to check them out. Thanks very much for watching guys, and I will see you all next time.